again.
Yes, we are. It seems like we're like every other hour we're on with each other.
Yes, absolutely. Well, things are moving quickly, so we have to be.
Extremely hectic. It's this morning when I got on and I started looking at emails and responding to emails, it was like fast and furious. Every couple seconds, a new email was popping in, a new update, sending something out to a client. A client heard this. What does this mean? It's just been absolutely amazing.
That's the thing. Everyone's hearing things from so many different sources. So, we're just trying to take that step back, take a breath, listen to what everyone's saying, but go to the sources that we know are the most up to date. I mean, that's really the key thing here. So,
wasn't it crazy that they had this application on the U.S. Department of Treasury website, and we're all looking at it. There's instructions for borrowers, for applicants. And then the minute you start talking to any of the banks, they're like, oh no, that doesn't mean anything. That's not the right application. So
and the application, it's down now.
Yeah, that's what I saw you said. I saw one of your emails that they took it down.
It's funny though, like I just wonder what that whole chain of information is back to the U.S. Treasury of everyone, looking at the form, freaking out about what they're asking people to certify and provide. And then all of a sudden they're like, they take it right down. It's funny to see things happening in such real time. Usually the government doesn't move that quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing that the government, usually they're snails. But now they're like the hare and the tortoise and the hare. But the other crazy thing is, yesterday I was talking to a bunch of bankers, and every single one of them, the conversation was, what are going to be the rate limiting factors here to get the applications to get the capability of getting applications processed, then actually processing / underwriting them. But then one thing nobody's really talking about is how quickly is the money going to get to the banks from the Federal Reserve so that they can then push the money out. They're like, one of the banks we talked with, as we said yesterday with our client presentation, they get 3,000 SBA applications last year, and they're expecting 40,000 applications, if not in the next month, maybe even just in the next week, because everybody's going to start getting bombarded.
That's why it's so important for us to help kind of temper our clients' expectations. Like, we're going to move as quickly as possible. Like, yes, we need to be, moving forward, but we need to have these backup plans with cash and how we're going to be handling things over the next month at least, because it is going to take time. I mean, it's just reality. So,
and then with all the restrictions, we got to worry about, okay, what's the strategy? What ones do we have our clients accept? How are we going to document the expenses for the forgiveness? But the first thing is, let's get everything applied for, and then we'll worry about that afterwards.
Yeah.
So that all being said, I know you've got a lot of things to talk about. So why don't you just jump right into some of the updates on the emergency, the EIDL grant, and we can go from there.
Yep. Okay. So the Emergency Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant, there's been a lot more information and clarification coming out about that. I actually just posted the link in the comments for the Facebook Live. So what we are seeing is that, the way that program works is anyone can really apply for one of these loans. But you've probably heard already, we've talked about this in a couple of our presentations this week, that there's a $10,000 grant, immediate relief grant that the government is offering. So even while the loan is pending and potentially, and actually even if you're not approved for the loan, everyone can pretty much get this grant. So we're suggesting that probably is a good idea to go for the grant. So the link is in the comments. It's a very easy application process. You have to put revenue numbers in there, some cost of goods sold, general business information, and then there's just check boxes to say, I'm not going to use it for bad things, essentially. So anyone can really fill it out. I've done it with a couple of clients already. Very simple. They are saying that you could potentially have the funds in your account within 3 days. I mean, they actually ask you for your bank routing and account number. So, you know what, if that's the case, money now is the most important thing. So let's, anyone that, is having any type of hardship or expecting hardship from COVID-19 and is a business or an independent contractor, self-employed, we're suggesting to go for these loans.
But this is a grant, not a loan, right?
I'm sorry. It's the application for the loan. So when you go onto the site, you will see that it's a loan application. And then one of the check boxes is, are you interested in the $10,000 grant? And then you would say yes to that. So the $10,000 is a grant. Which means it does not need to get paid back. But some people are getting a little confused because it does say economic injury disaster loan is the application. And then within the loan processing, there's the option to get the grant. Okay, so it's the grant we are looking for. We think people should be going for. Those loans are supposed to be used for operating expenses and payroll, as well as the grants. So if you do get the money, you're pretty much saying, I need this for my business, right? You're not taking the $10,000 to then go buy groceries. So, we don't know how they're going to check these things after the fact, but they are asking for certification that you are only using it for that. So we do think we need to take that very seriously and ensure, and just advise that if you're going to go for this, you're doing it for all the right reasons. Okay. One new piece of information that came out, and it's sort of about the intersection of all these things, right?
That's where I was going to go next. Yeah.
Given the advice to be cautious, and not that you don't do them, multiple programs, but just to make sure you understand if there's any limitations, if you do one, how it might limit the other. Now, specifically for this $10,000 grant, okay, if you get the grant with the intention that you're going to use it for payroll and other operating expenses, and then you also apply for the payroll protection program, which we'll talk about a little more in a second, and we've talked about on our webinars. That program, the grant piece of it or the loan forgiveness piece of it, is specifically for payroll. So if you get approved for a loan and you get loan forgiveness of that 8-week portion, and you also get the $10,000 grant for the EIDL, they will reduce that forgiven portion by the $10,000. But who cares? As far as we're concerned, getting that $10,000 now is critical. And then down the road, that reconciliation, it's not going to be a big thing. If you're actually getting the loan and getting the grant, the loan forgiveness, that $10,000 will be consequential later. And it's most important to try to be getting that right now.
So can I ask you a quick question about that? So I know with the PPP program, there's a formula to calculate the actual amount of the loan. I'm not talking about the forgiveness portion. I'm talking about the amount of the loan. Yes. So is that $10,000 if you do receive the grant, is that $10,000, does that have any impact on the determination of what the loan amount will be?
Great question. No, it does not. It is purely on what they're saying is the 8 weeks of those approved costs, which includes will be mostly payroll. It'll get reduced from that piece that is the forgiven piece, if it is forgiven.
Okay.
Okay, that answers your question, right?
Yep.
Okay. So then more into the specific payroll protection program, some big changes happened there. So we're talking about, the forgiveness part. So the forgiveness part, you do not have to pay back. But if you use it for something that is not part of those core type of expenses, you decide to use it for another type of operating expense, or even if there's more that you were approved for, but then you use, the less for payroll, whatever the scenario is going to be. If there's a portion that is not forgiven, we know that converts to a loan. So one of the big changes that's come down now is the original payback and interest of those loans was 10 years, maximum 4% interest. Now the guidance is it's a 2-year payback with a 0.5% interest, which is very low. Now there still will be deferrals. Probably don't have to start paying it back for 6 months, but a 2-year payback is a lot different than a 10-year payback. So in your planning, if you're not worried about the loan forgiveness, you want to get the loan and then plan to pay it back on that payroll protection piece. Very low interest, but it is a faster turnaround time for the payback.
So again, the forgiveness portion, the expenses that can be that you can pay off to get that forgiveness, those are, if I'm not mistaken, and they may have changed it between the last time I saw it 2 hours ago and
no,
now.
Not so much.
Exactly. It is payroll. Health insurance premiums, are they included in that?
That is included in, yep. Compensation, it's essentially compensation and benefits.
Wages, salaries, independent contractors, those kind of expenses.
Correct.
But again, there's also a limit of $100,000 for any particular person in annual compensation. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
So the other ones are rent.
Mm-hmm.
Are any equipment lease payments included in that?
The rent, utilities, and interest on loans or mortgages. So no, equipment payments, any large service providers you bring in that aren't really looked at as an employee, that's not part of it. So it's not operating expenses in this scenario. It's the Paycheck Protection Program. So it's really about keeping people employed. Why they threw rent in there is kind of making it more confusing on some of, that you can use it for that. But essentially what this is all about is providing relief to businesses that are keeping people employed. And they're looking at it for an 8-week period specifically, really to try to, get us through this. Hopefully we only need it for that long.
But putting the government hat on, they're probably thinking with regard to the rent and the utilities, because technically there's not a moratorium on commercial evictions. So they want to make sure that people, the businesses are still viable. So and that's also potentially helping out the landlords as well, because the money can be used to pay the rent. So I think it's probably, that's some of the reasoning or the thinking behind it.
Right, and I feel like maybe it was a reasoning that got thrown in after they called it paycheck.
That could be too. You never know. But I have a quick question to go back real quick to the grant. I know with some of the states, like here in Maryland, it's up to $10,000 with the grants, and there's no guidance or interpretation of how that is how it's determined how much you actually get up to the 10,000. Is the federal one, does it have the same type of restrictions? Is it like up to, so you may only get $1 as opposed to 10,000, or is it just a straight $10,000 grant?
It is not being communicated that there is any restriction or calculation of what they are giving you. Now, granted, you do have to put in, the revenue for the business, and you do have to put in some things that they potentially could do a calculation with, but there is no communication, no documentation, nothing I have seen that they just say you get the $10,000 grant. So that's all I know now. Where yes, on a lot of the states, it is saying the up to, or it's going to be limited by. That is not what I'm seeing for this grant.
Gotcha. So also real quick, with regard to the change from the 10 years up to 10 years, 4%. So I was just quickly running a scenario while we were talking, and what it oops, let me give you, just for everybody listening. So on $100,000 principal amount, the monthly payment for 10 years at 4% is $1,000 a month. Whereas at 2 years for the same $100,000 at 0.5% interest is roughly a little shy of $4,200 a month. That's a significant difference. So we're going to be talking later on when we get into this with a little bit more detail, not today, but on another live session. I think it might be a good idea for us to talk about, how do you weigh for cash flow purposes on the back end of all this, once the business gets up and running again, what you really are going to need. So those decisions probably will have to be made once you know what programs you've been approved for and have access to. But I just wanted people to understand there is a significant difference.
Yeah.
Granted, it's only a 0.5% interest, but you're paying the principal back over the course of 2 years. We have a client right now that is looking, they'll probably be able to qualify for $750,000, and as opposed on the 10-year side, it was $7,300 a month. Now it would be $31,000 a month that they would have to pay it off within 2 years, no matter when that 2 years starts.
Right. And like we've said, I mean, that's why you have to be looking at what happens after too, because it's not just, it's surviving now, but you can't put yourself in a position where then you have, you know, such a large debt to be paid off. That wouldn't make sense either. So in assessing this, you know, in assessing which scenario is better.
So there's definitely strategies that people are going to need to understand, and looking at it, not just from today, but where do I want my business to be 6 months from now, a year from now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so now it's getting down to kind of execution, when some of this is going to be ready. We're getting clear on what the programs are, but then it's really, you know, we're a little unsure on the how they're going to do it, but even the timing has been a little bit in flux. What we're seeing is that business applications, so for actual businesses who have payroll, for the payroll protection program, which seems to be what everyone is most interested in at the moment, those applications are supposed to go live tomorrow. Now, this is the application form that we were talking about earlier that was up on the website Tuesday night, is no longer there, and they're telling us, we're hearing it's going to be an online form versus a paper form, which is what was on the website. And all of this is supposed to be squared away by tomorrow for businesses. Whether or not it is or not, we don't know, but let's say it is. Another component of this is whether the banks are going to actually be able to take that information and do something with it. So from a date perspective, tomorrow is supposed to be the go live date for businesses. But where the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, is also eligible for self-employed and independent contractors, that application is not going to be ready until the 10th of April. Okay, which kind of makes sense because they really haven't given guidance of how they're going to determine payroll for those folks, right? A Schedule C taxpayer, someone who does not get a W-2 or does not give themselves a W-2, how are they going to determine what their self-employed income is? So it kind of makes sense that it's going to take a little longer, and they haven't solved that one just yet with everything else going on. So, so that's the thing. So businesses tomorrow, and then self-employed and independent contractors should be expecting something on the 10th.
So with regard to some of this, the logistical aspects, I haven't seen anything, but I know that when the EIDL loans came up and they posted the application, the site went down for a number of hours or days because of the sheer magnitude of number of people going on and trying to apply. What our understanding is, unless you've heard something different and can enlighten us on that, that the banks, these are going to be processed through various banks that have been approved by the SBA, whether they're already currently SBA lenders or getting approved to be SBA lenders. So is this going to be have you heard, because I haven't seen anything about this, is this going to be an application that is going to be on the SBA site and then you pick a bank that you're going to use, or is it going to be on the bank sites and you go to the bank of choice that you're working with? Because most of the banks that I talk to are saying, we're not sure if we're going to take people that aren't customers in this process, because we got to service all of our customers, and we're expecting tens of thousands of people to our customers, or all of our customers that are business customers, to be applying for this. So they don't have the bandwidth, and human resources to be able to handle it. So have you heard anything where this application is going to be, whether it's going to be from the banks or whether it's going to be at the SBA site?
No. The answer is no. We know that they wanted
and all I get is a no.
We know that they wanted to be a universal form, which made sense when they posted a form the other day on the SBA site. And we also know that the banks don't know what they're doing yet. So I don't believe that it's going to be on banks' websites, and it certainly is not going to be there tomorrow. So, you know, an online form, I think it probably makes the most sense that it would be on the SBA website and you can choose a bank, but there has been nothing published as far as I don't think they even know yet. No, maybe they are actually developing something right now. I don't know. But it's supposed to, you know, they're saying tomorrow. So that's all I know. I just have not found anything.
So I just want to tell everybody that's listening that as soon as we find out, we're going to be posting links here, if it's on the SBA site, or giving instruction to go to your bank that it's going to be up. So as soon as we find out, we're going to push that information out to everybody in our group.
Yeah, I mean, when the form got posted the other night, it was 8 o'clock at night, and I was like, oh, the form I was excited. And then they took it down.
Well, yeah, we were already started to get the form, and we were going to have our whole team, you know, each one of our CFO teams do the form for the client, get it up so that it could be submitted, start putting the package together, and that's a good thing. I think we know at least an overview of what the package or what the supporting documentation is going to, what they're going to need when they apply. So why don't you go into what you found with regard to that?
Yeah, so we're getting information, actually. What banks are telling us is what they think they're going to need from the businesses. So again, it's what they think. So, but they are sharing that with us, and our clients who have received emails from their banks are sending it to us. So we've been able to kind of look at all of them, and they're very similar to have a list right now. So if you're a business that has folks on payroll, they're going to be really looking for all of that payroll documentation. So 2019 quarterly payroll tax reports, 940s, 941s, 944s. You can get that from your payroll company or payroll service. The last 12 months of payroll reports, beginning with the last payroll that was run, going back 12 months. Okay, so that's how they're going to see gross wages, vacation pay, because they're looking to get to an average monthly payroll expense, as well as 1099s for 2019 1099s that were issued for independent contractors. And these are independent contractors, like I said earlier, that are kind of acting like an employee, right? Not bigger contractors or, you know, not bigger service providers that are coming in and providing service. It's people functioning like an employee within your organization.
And not even like a person coming in to do a repair on on some of your equipment.
No maintenance. Yeah, it's not maintenance. I mean, it's someone that is really there almost every day. It's you know, a certain amount of time every month, like is acting like an employee with a role in the organization. I think I would almost classify it as that, like the person has an actual role in the company.
Maybe even like an outsourced CFO.
An outsourced CFO, yeah. Also documentation showing total of all health insurance premiums. So health insurance that you're paying for on behalf of your employees is part of the benefits and part of compensation. And then the sum of all retirement plan funding that was paid on behalf, so it's the company's contribution to retirement plans, not the employee's contribution. So again, a benefit of equaling total compensation for the employees. Now, like we said before, self-employed, they don't really know how self-employed and independent contractors are going to submit. That's not ready yet. The requirements are not officially out there. But I suspect that for self-employed and independent contractors, because you don't have officially payroll, you're going to have to show your 2019 tax return, which will show self-employed income, which is really your net, right? That's your net of your business income. That's your self-employed income, and possibly any 1099s that you've received. So you should already have all that paperwork together for your 2019 taxes, whether you filed or not yet. But that will be where they're going to get that from. Now, one thing to remember, I think Demi mentioned it earlier, but you have to remember, especially for the independent contractors and the self-employed, for the payroll protection program, they are only looking at up to $100,000 of payroll. So if you're someone who, as a self-employed person, makes $250,000, they are not going to be looking at that total amount. They are only going to provide this loan and then forgiveness or actually the loan amount will be calculated only on $100,000. So just something to make sure that everyone knows.
That just, I hadn't really thought about that until I just heard you again.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we've been talking about this. So what about somebody who is a high-level employee, but not an owner, not self-employed, making over 100,000? Does that 100,000 limit also apply to them as well?
It does.
It does. Okay.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter if they're self-employed or they're the owner. It's any salaries over 100,000. It's the amount that's over 100,000 that doesn't qualify for the determination of how much the loan will be.
Right. And this is for payroll protection, right? So that loan where it's 2.5 times your determined payroll costs for a month, it's only going to go up to 100,000 for employees that are making more than that. The economic injury disaster loan, the first, the first one that got rolled out, there's no limitations in there, like that. So that can also be used for payroll, and it has more flexibility. But then again, that's not going to get forgiven. So, again, you got to weigh kind of which.
That could be used potentially to cover the monies that the PPP program doesn't cover.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Absolutely.
So, but going back to what you were talking about before, when it came to the calculation of the loan and the time frame, from a lot of the questions that we've been getting, it seems to be there's some confusion as to everybody's kind of meshing or mixing the calculation of the loan amount with the forgiveness. And you please speak to that to let people know exactly where and how each one of these things is determined, because it's a different time frame for each one. Am I correct?
No, I think what's happening is the time frames are getting confused. So you're going to determine an amount based on a time frame, and then you're going to determine forgiveness. Well, okay, so the forgiveness is an 8-week period. So that's kind of something that hasn't happened yet, right? So the loan amount is going to be based on 2.5 times an average payroll, and I'll get to the timing in a second of what that is. And then the forgiveness will be for an 8-week period, whatever you spent on those things that qualify, which is payroll, right? So really, it should equal out. But the time period confusion is that, some people are saying it's 2019 numbers, right? So it's 2019 payroll, 2019 1099s. But then we're also hearing, no, it's from the payroll period, the last payroll period, back 12 months. Now, you can get a report like that last 12 months for payroll, but you can't get 1099 reports like that because 1099 is annually. So the guidance that we're getting right now is a bit of a mishmash of right? So it's the most recent 12 months for payroll, 2019 for independent contractors. But again, they're coming up with the calculation is an average. So we're all, this would be the payroll period of March back. There's probably not that much of a variation, but they're going to kind of lump it all together as I understand it right now.
Right. I mean, I remember like it was years ago, but initially when this all came out, the first time frame was they were saying, they're going to take an average of your payroll from February 15th, 2019 to June 30th of 2019. Then it got expanded to all of 2019. And now you're saying they're basically saying go back 12 months from your last payroll. But I definitely see a problem with that, because there's some businesses that had laid people off or their payroll was reduced prior to March 30th or their last payroll. So that could potentially reduce down the amount. So I think that those are things that have to be vetted out either with your bank and maybe just say, listen, here's the payroll report for 2019. This is a point where, what we were talking about yesterday in our client presentation, ask for forgiveness as opposed to asking for permission. Maybe what, some people should be doing is, especially if they have lower payroll in the last couple weeks, just take 2019, you have a report from your payroll processing service or out of your QuickBooks, give that report, give your 1099 report for 2019, and let the banks, they're going to be overwhelmed. So any bit of information they're going to get, they're going to probably just use that. So it might be best if your payroll's larger in 2019 than it would be just going back 12 months, use your 2019.
Yeah,
again, we don't know because there's no definitive guidance
And
here.
again, I mean, what I've just read through as far as documentation, I mean, that's what we're getting from banks as far as what they think is going to be required.
Right.
Still, it's not even the definitive requirement from the U.S. Treasury. So, but it's good to start thinking about it, start pulling those reports, start making sure you can grab what you need, thinking through, okay, my health insurance, how do I show what I've paid? My retirement plan, what's the best report to show? You know, just getting it organized, and then whether you need to pull it for 2019 or the last 12 months, that's easy, you know, that's not as hard to do.
Yeah, but you know me, I would tell everybody, get it both and be prepared.
Okay,
have both
so
ready
better.
to go.
I'm trying to be like a softer approach, but go ahead. All right.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yes,
that's what it's always been.
Always. So a couple of more quick points. So one of the things is that we're understanding from our sources that information is being released, that a company can apply for an EIDL and a payroll protection. Okay, so we just want to make that clear. They're trying to avoid double dipping. So just think of it that way. If you use funds in the payroll protection for payroll, right, and then that's forgiven or even actually used in general for payroll, you should not be using the EIDL for payroll. It should be used for other operating expenses. We have no clue how the mechanics of that or how they're going to police it going forward, but that's what they are saying. So you can apply for both, which is good. Allows you to assess which is better for you, how you want to use the funds, like the excess we were saying of payroll, maybe you want to use the EIDL for that. So it gives you flexibility, but knowing that, they want to avoid double dipping, and we'll be asking you to certify that you're not. So that's what's key here. Like, we need to, you need to be doing it as honestly as possible, and to the best of your knowledge, because you do have to certify it.
Along those lines, we had a couple clients send emails out either late yesterday or today, and there were 2 points with regard to the EIDL and the PPP loan. One, somebody was saying that they were informed that the EIDL application was going to be closed the minute the PPP opened. So that, I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything along those lines?
Not at all.
Okay, that's good. So people, again, as soon as we hear stuff, if we hear those kind of things, we'll post them in our group. The other thing that I think that people need to be aware of, and maybe you can walk us through the logistics of it, at least explain it better than I do. There's a potential to if you get an EIDL loan, you could refinance it into the PPP so that part of it or all of it could be forgiven if you actually get the money before can you talk about that a little bit? Because I know that's confusing.
The logistics of it I don't know how they're going to manage that, because that's something new that it just kind of come out. But what that means, and what it should just kind of put, the fact that they're looking at the integration of the two should put everyone at ease that, if you went with the first option, because that's what it was. The EIDL option was out, I think it was March 6th, it was actually released when this really all started, to hit the fan. But they're saying, okay, if you did this, you can refinance into this. So they're allowing for flexibility. How they're going to do that when you do it, there's nothing out as far as the true mechanics or logistics of it. But the fact that you can do that is a very good sign that they're even thinking along those lines. And it shows their overall flexibility of making sure that the businesses end up in the right program for them. So that's a good thing, because people were getting very nervous about, well, what if I already did this? Does it hurt me over here trying for this new program? And it does not.
One other thing that came out in our webinar that we did for Kim Walsh Phillips Power Professional Group was the fact that she was asking us, was there a way to determine the quote unquote charlatans, the fraudsters, the ones that are going to be trying to prey on everybody, the scammers, the schemers are going to be preying on everybody in this. So can you talk a little bit about how how a business owner might be able to distinguish from a legitimate professional service provider or one that isn't?
So there should be absolutely no instance where a borrower for these programs is paying anyone a fee, okay? So the government, as part of this program, they are paying the fees to the banks of what it takes for the banks to provide this service and execute these loans. They also, there's agents available for people just to help them get loans, right? So there's businesses out there, attorneys, accountants that are assisting in the process of getting these loans. They are worked into this too, and we don't really know how.
Yeah.
But they're how it's actually going to work. But they're worked into this by the lender's fees that the government is giving them. They're getting paid through that. So what that means is anyone that is helping with these loans, the government is taking care of their fees for the service. There should be nothing that the borrower is actually paying. So no out of pocket for a business owner, no fees, no percentage of loan proceeds if they're, no promising of a certain amount and they can get you more, somebody can get you more, none of that. So you need to be talking to your bank, talk to a bank that you have a relationship with, and be very skeptical. I mean, there really should be no reason that I can see that someone would actually be charging you anything to do this.
So no loan origination fee, no other points from the bank side. And from a provider side, I know we're not charging our clients. That's just part of the service that we provide our clients, that we're helping them get get the documents together, get the application submitted, and then sitting down with them to determine what to use. So there shouldn't be any fees that anybody should be paying to any business owner to assist them in getting their application submitted or getting the funds submitted. And there shouldn't be any fees to the lender whatsoever. At least that's what the guidance is saying currently.
Right, exactly. So that was the quick rundown that I had of everything, all the new stuff.
So I think it was really needed based on, we had a presentation to our clients yesterday at 10 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock we were getting all inundated with all these new emails and all these new changes just from 10 o'clock in the morning when we went live with our client base. So it is changing. I mean, before you were saying, oh, it's changing daily. Now it seems like it's almost changing hourly.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
So I don't know if there's any questions out there.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's questions now, but we're going to post this, and then folks, please ask us questions along the way, post comments after the fact, and we will get back to you with some answers.
And next week, we're planning to go live again on Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to have, I believe, Laura Bianchini, who is an insurance broker with Moody Insurance, to talk about business continuity and business interruption insurance and all the developments that are occurring there, what business owners should be aware of with regard to that aspect of this. We potentially are going to have Sharon Cantrell of Revere/Sandy Spring Bank, who will be coming on and talking about, again, we don't know if she's going to be able to come on because of how the banks are going to be slammed. It's just going to be a matter of what she's going to be the time that she's going to be able to give us and to give our group. But right now she's scheduled to come on to talk about this whole process from the bank's perspective, so that business owners know what to expect, what timelines to expect, and if they haven't applied, what to expect in the application process, and more of that. We may do another live session as needed based on changes. So just stay tuned. We'll post it and let everybody know if we're going to go live But if you have any questions, pop it into, again, this is new to us, first time we've ever done it, so I don't know if I got the lingo right or the terminology right, but post your questions or comments directly into the Facebook group, and we'll be reaching out and responding to them. So thanks, Vicki, for the time. I know we're going to be talking a lot over the next couple days as well.
Yep.
So,
it was great.
Again, all right, I guess we're done. Do you have anything you want to say?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.
You too.